Today we're going to talk about 6 things you need to know about the history of a martini. Welcome to Common Man Cocktails. I'm your host, Derrick Schommer. Today what I want to talk about is the martini. It is one of the drinks that I think everybody has at least heard of. This isn't necessarily to make you want to try them, but I think understanding the history of it will give you great appreciation for those that do order it, and you'll have a little bit more to talk about in your conversations with your cocktail friends. Or it might just impress people with your knowledge. So let's run down 6 facts about a martini. Fact number 1. A martini should really be made with gin. One of the reasons that gin is a really great way of expressing your martini is because the botanicals and the flavors and the juniper forward nature or not so forward nature of different types of gins play completely different. So if you're creating a martini with a London dry gin like a Bombay or a Beefeater, the flavor you're going to get is going to be a little bit more juniper forward, a lot more botanical heavy versus something like a New Amsterdam, which is an American gin, which is going to have a little bit more of a citrus forward flavor to it. Then you have your Hendricks, which has a little bit more of that botanical cucumber action. You can find some that have cardamom. You can find some that have chamomile. Those flavors make a big difference. Or you can go old school to the Old Tom gin. Around 1922 was about the date that the advent of the 2-to-1 ratio gin to vermouth martini came about. And the Roaring 20s was where that was really hammered home, and it was like the golden age of the martini. The vodka martini is actually known as the kangaroo martini, at least up until the 1950s. But it's hard to change popular belief, so today we have the vodka martini, and when you're ordering a martini, you really need to specify vodka or gin. Thanks, James Bond. However, we did have 30 years of martini drinking with just gin before vodka ever really entered the scene. Fact number 2, shaken or stirred. All martinis, in fact, are stirred. A shaken martini is actually a different cocktail. It's called the Bradford. It also tends to have orange bitters as part of its component. If you go back in time, most classic drinks had bitters as part of their component. So it's not that unusual to have brought bitters into it. It is unusual to name a drink separately for being shaken versus stirred. Interesting enough, in 1888, the Bartender's Manual had a recipe created with equal parts Old Tom gin and vermouth. So the martini does date itself back as an old United States-made drink. It should also be noted that the Savoy cocktail book recommends every single martini within this book shaken. So you decide what you want to do. Fact number 3, a dry martini and an extra dry martini are different, and one actually has less vermouth. A dry martini is made with dry vermouth, and different ratios exist to match different people's tastes. But one thing you need to understand is that an extra dry martini actually has less vermouth, not more dry vermouth. Because if you look at the bottle, a lot of these, a London dry gin has the word dry in it. So just because you hear dry in vermouth doesn't mean to have it extra dry, you actually add extra vermouth. It's the opposite. If you do want to add extra vermouth to bring down that gin, that's called a wet martini. Fact number 4, there's such thing as a dirty martini. And a dirty martini brings in olive brine or an olive juice. It makes your martini a little bit more salty, and some of that saline, it can change the composition of the cocktail, and it will probably mute some of your gin. So if you're not a huge gin drinker, a dirty martini might be an easier way to consume your gin. And of course, when you add olive brine, it clouds it up a little bit, makes it look dirty. Fact number 5, there is such thing as a sweet martini, and a sweet martini has sweet vermouth instead of dry vermouth. It really doesn't pertain to what type of gin you're using. It really comes down to the sweet vermouth addition versus not having it. However, if you're not sure, you're a little timid about going sweet vermouth, do a 50-50 mix. Have 50% of your vermouth be dry and 50% be sweet, and now what you've done is you've just been served a perfect martini. Side note, if you order your martini neat, they will take gin and they will put it in a chilled glass and hand it to you. Just gin. It's just gin. Straight gin. Just drinking gin. And fact number 6, just because it has "-ini" doesn't necessarily always make it a martini. I don't know if I've ever been to a restaurant that hasn't had a peach-tini, apple-tini, cosmo-tini, pomegranate martini. They all got "-inis. But really, that's just in the name. A lot of that comes through the use of the cocktail glass, what most people call a martini glass. You put it in a martini glass and all of a sudden it's an "-ini. However, you'll find that most "-inis don't actually have gin in them. They're using vodka. So you're really having a flavored vodka martini, pomegranate vodka, whatever. Very few "-inis have real juice in it. So that could also pay tribute to why it would be more of a martini, because it's usually straight alcohol. It just happens to be flavored. However, if you want a more true "-ini, one that fits the history better, look up the Vesper or the Gibson. The Gibson's like a dirty martini, but with onions instead of the olives, so you've got that going for you. The Vesper is another great cocktail you could check out. It's also part of our ebook, our free ebook on homecocktailmenu.com, so you can check it out there if you'd like. But that's it. Hopefully you have enough information to be able to go forth, order your martinis, watch people you order their martinis, and understand the difference between a wet, a dry, a perfect, a neat, and what might have defined an early martini. Spread the knowledge. Let people know. A martini really is based on gin, and vodka came far later. We'll teach you how to drink.
Oh, hey. Did you guys know there's a little bell next to the subscribe button on all our videos and on our channel main page? If you click that bell, you can actually receive notifications every time a new episode goes live daily. But for now, just click on one of these two guys right here and watch those videos. It's a good time.